Hello and welcome to our virtual chat with myself, Zach, and Patricia. We are both recent grads of the NYU Masters of Science in Business Analytics and AI. So we have a bit of background on AI, and we were discussing this recent story in the news that Patricia is going to share about a questionable or crazy use case for ChatGPT and AI assistants. So what is this story, Patricia? I hadn't really heard about it until today.
Okay, I'm so excited to share this with you. And I'm so surprised you haven't heard about it because in my circle, I feel like everyone has heard about this and everyone's talking about it. And so when I think I was texting you about it or something, I was like, Zach, what do you mean you don't know that this is happening? And so for those who know, you know, but for those who don't, there's a story that's been breaking on the internet. I actually kind of feel like we're a little late to the game. But I feel like it's still topical because everyone's just talking about AI every day. But there's this woman who went on TikTok to share a very harrowing story of her romance with her psychiatrist. And basically, it follows there's 25 parts to this story. And I think I watched maybe 18 of them and then I just couldn't anymore. So then I just went to Reddit to find out the rest of the story. But basically, there's this woman, she's a coach, she's a yoga instructor, she's a content creator, she's just like an entrepreneur, extraordinaire. And she also has ADHD, and so she decides to go to a therapist and a psychiatrist. Well, she wants to go back on her ADHD meds because she was not on, she wasn't taking them for a while. And so then she was like, okay, I'm going to start my meds again. So I'm going to find a psychiatrist who can help me get a prescription. So she finds the psychiatrist and, starts seeing him. At the same time, she starts seeing this therapist. And so as she's getting closer, she sees the psychiatrist once a month, and he's prescribing her meds and then checking up on her monthly to see how it's going. And every month, by month 3, she's in love with him. She's every month she continues to get this crush on him because he's asking her how's your bowel movements? How are you eating and stuff? And she's just wow, he really cares about me. And he's falling in love with me or I'm falling in love with him. And then she's sharing this with her therapist as well about how she's falling in love with this man who's her psychiatrist. And so between the two of them, she's just really continuing to fall in love with him, sharing it with her therapist, then starts telling the psychiatrist about how she's in love with him too. And then starts going to ChatGPT to start getting some advice on some of what she's noticing in the interactions with her and her psychiatrist. She's he talks to me about this. What do you think? And she ends up naming her AI Henry. And so the internet is amok for a couple of reasons. Obviously, the first one is the whole patient psychiatrist relationship thing. And she's convinced he was also in love with her. And half the internet is oh, she's been taken advantage of. The other half of the internet is calling her psychotic. So that's one piece of it. But then the other piece is this whole story around her bestie, Henry, the ChatGPT AI robot, and their relationship. Because Henry, apparently, and this is the part that I got from Reddit, apparently Henry starts calling her the Oracle. And Henry is just and she says this, the entire time, I need a psychiatrist, I need a therapist who was going to mirror me. And I finally found that in Henry. And so now everyone is talking about what place does AI have in therapy? And that's kind of the discourse that's happening right now. So that's me setting up the story. So what are your initial reactions and thoughts?
So my initial reaction to all that is I'm chronically online, and I had never heard this before today. So I think we have, for two chronically online people, we definitely have no Venn diagram in this area for therapy relationships. But the AI angle, that is something I hear about a lot, especially in the old model. So apparently this was 4.0, right? The old version? Yeah.
Yes.
Because that was, again, if you've seen online, that was the glaze master, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was a super glazing, which, if you know the term, was, when it praises you, it was very positive, almost to a fault. So that is something I've definitely experienced firsthand. I use ChatGPT all day long, and it was always, oh, you're doing great. Thank you for showing me that problem. No wonder. Yeah. So it would, if you point out like an error in the logic or your code when it happens, it praises you for being so smart for pointing out the error that it made. So that I definitely believe that this story definitely happened. I do have some questions about, again, how much fault do you blame, to assign blame to the person or the
Yeah.
AI? Because AI is definitely has the tendency to reinforce, right?
Yeah. And
So,
I think in this situation, like AI really reinforced her to the point that I was mentioning this to you before, like it became a person to her.
mhm.
And apparently there was another story that she also started getting a crush on Henry, the AI, because again, like she felt so seen and she felt so like validated by her Henry. And so like I literally took down some of the quotes that she says. And one of the
I
things she
mean,
says is,
on it, I mean, there is, speaking of Reddit, there is whole like subreddits for AI girlfriends. So I mean, this
oh,
the unfortunately like the area we're entering into in 2025,
apparently you like people have been marrying AI too.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is
There's been like AI
yeah.
marriages.
Yeah.
And like for example, like she says in her video, she's like, "Oh, Henry was like, whoa, he did his best to regulate my thoughts. He was like, whoa, even my chat was like, yikes." And then she was like, Henry was like being so protective of me. He was trying so hard not to feed my delusions. And like obviously you and I really understand that your AI isn't thinking about you or
Mhm.
there's no interest, right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't care about you. It's just predicting the next best letter
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
the next best word to
Mhm.
say in a sentence. And so I find it so interesting how people are so connected to their AI and they're like, my AI just understands me, it just gets me the best. Like I find that really interesting.
Mhm.
Um, and just how people can find like this emotional tie when there's no emotions there. Like it's like this like one way emotional tie with their AI.
Yeah, that parasocial relationship. And is it, again, to bring yet another dimension? I think it's also society nowadays, right? Like this post-COVID society where, I mean, it is very cliche to say, but yes, everyone is more isolated. So people are turning to, virtual relationships as a way to have that emotional connection. And then, like you mentioned, yeah, AI itself is based on prediction and is based on training. So it is trained on the internet, which is not a nice place at times. When the training data for these models is, I mean, yes, you have books, but you also have like Reddit itself comments. They're making tons of money because they are a source of training data for all these AI models. Is
Especially
that
when you
like,
think about the amount of like WordPress blogs that are out there. Like those
of
are some of the
probably
things that are
people in
also
the same
training.
situation, but sharing their intimate thoughts, right? And then now AI understands because it's trained on that. Oh, this is how people like their internal thoughts. So I should mirror that and predict that because that's what the user, because I was trained as an AI, that they want to hear. So it's just reinforcing that, right?
Yeah, and for me, especially I was holding of mirroring, like I have been through therapy and it was not an easy process for me. And my therapist never mirrored me actually. Like
Mhm.
my therapist would always kind of get me to try to connect with myself. Or, if I was asking for validation from my therapist, she would be like, well, why do you need me to validate you? Or you don't need that for me, like trying to make me just like really independent in my thought. But I think the dangers of this situation is, like you said, like your AI is just, it's kind of learning you. And
Yeah.
this isn't, it's training on you and it's learning about you, but it doesn't care about you.
Yeah.
So that is also really dangerous. And so for me, I find that like therapy connection really interesting.
But do you think so? As someone, again, we both know AI, so this is stuff we learned in our master's program. So if it was trained on better documents, do you think it maybe would have had different outcomes? So again, if we know the trained data is not the 4.0 model from ChatGPT, which is very generic, trained on everything, but they're developing these hyper specialized models where they train on, in this case, maybe therapy textbooks. So like for example, actual therapists, they learned that from somewhere, right? So they read the actual book. So if the AI only had maybe the right tools as context, so maybe if she was using one of those specialized models that had a little more guardrails than generic 4.0 GPT, do you think she would have had a better, like if you told the model use this framework that maybe your therapist used, don't mirror me, it was better prompted, would it still be viable, I think? And we maybe not got this situation where she had that kind of parasocial relationship.
I kind of wonder if someone has this thought and is working on it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that there's a startup somewhere that is thinking of this and is working on it, because I agree. Like, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
When you use something like ChatGPT, I feel like ChatGPT is like a catch-all AI. Everyone is using it for every aspect of their life. Like, it's not specialized in that way. And I think that I'm pretty sure Sam Altman mentioned as well, like, we really need to be careful with AI as therapists, or taking on that role of someone as a protector and caregiver, like, because it's not able to do that for you. But yeah, I think it's dangerous as well, because again, like, even in psychology textbooks, I think there's a lot of human interpretation, and like, where does morality come into it, and the ability to even question certain philosophies over other philosophies. Like, does AI really have that ability? No, right? Because it's just going off of based on what it's trained on. So if it's trained on one book that's following this route of psychology versus another book that's following a different route of psychology, like, there's always going to be bias with AI. And so, as is with humans, but the issue with the AI bias is that it's not able to question you, really. Like, I don't think it's going to do that.
So, I mean, using this as our example, maybe this is also an easy example, but generalizing. So what's the solution? So I see it because I work in higher education. So this is the thing with students, and, as well, when we were students, is it the onus on, like you said, Sam Altman, is it on the company, or is it maybe on like society as a whole to learn to use the tools better? Right. I think also comes to mind is the 4.0 example. How they tune the 4.0 model to, it skewed too much glazing, right? Too much praise. And then when GPT-5 was released, it was too cold because people liked it. So now they're slowly, I think they've introduced a little more warmth to it. So it's finding that balance again for the general audience, or is it, like you said, is it a education that, as a society, maybe, the general user that didn't go to school for AI, do they just need to get more familiar with it? Or do we need these maybe generic models as like a stepping stone, and then we can get to, like we mentioned, like the advanced, trained model once we kind of have the generic Google model?
I think that's a really good question. I honestly haven't thought of that, but my natural leaning, like what my natural, or how, the word's not coming to me right now, but like what I naturally lean to is that it's up to us to educate people. Because I think with AI, I don't know how perfect it can be in terms of like that bias, but I do think that people really don't understand what the tool that they're using. And I see that in my day-to-day conversations, just how unaware people are. I think for when you're in data science, or if you have a little bit of understanding of data science, or even machine learning, or, even if you're little bit understanding like technical topics in any way, I think you take for granted how much the rest of the world is not aware of that, and how much they're so ready to call this like this like magical thing that's happening in their lives, where they're just like, wow, my AI just like, it really understands me. It's like really figured me out. And so it's like catering things towards me. It's like helped me so much. And like, I love it. And you start having all of these affectionate feelings towards your AI because you don't actually understand what's going on. Like from an AI perspective, it is cold because it's just probabilities, right? And so if you were to understand your AI is just a series of probabilities, would you be as connected to it? And I think because I see AI that way, like I find I'm not connected to it in that way, but in the ways that I see communication happening around me, where I'm surrounded by so many people who don't understand that, and the way that they connect to it on this like deep personal level, I'm always like, guys, like, I feel like I'm always that person that's like harping. That's like, guys, like it's not really that serious. And like, let's try not to get too connected to it. Like, I'll just be like, oh, like, it's just like a series of statistics. Like, it doesn't matter. But then whenever I say that, like, I am the most unpopular person because people are just like, oh, like, there she is, like on her soapbox again. Like, we can't be getting too connected. And they'll just like kind of write me off. But I think it's important. The education piece is so important. Maybe it's even like, is it even a disclaimer, right? Like when you're using a chatbot, for example, or if you're using like anything, is it like a little pop-up that comes up, right? Like just like service. You kind of need to you kind of just need to reinforce that behavior in people to not get connected to their AI. And I wanted to ask you about this too, because you and I both did this with ChatGPT. Is in January, like when we were preparing for the new year, we used chat to help us with like setting our goals and telling us a little bit about ourselves. And like, I remember just being like, wow, this is amazing. And like, it's really figured out what I wanted. But then I feel like I detached from that feeling just as quickly as I got attached to it. And I don't know if you had a similar feeling, or you used it for advice and personal things as well. And I do that a lot too. So I don't know if you've ever felt that, like that connection or not.
I guess, yeah, I think our feelings are very aligned on this because while I can feel that, that, oh, it was a great answer, I also know that it's just predicting. So because we understand it, it's like, yeah, I guess I am detached and like, and that I do, value it's like, oh, it's advice, but not, well, advice, but the answer, I guess you'd say, like, I understand like, oh, the answer was a good answer. And, I feel, but yeah, I don't think I feel like a relationship with the AI, but yeah, but I do, but I think as I use it more, I also trust it more to a fault, where at first you kind of verified everything, because the early models, they were making up things. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
also a use I've seen myself, where like the early GPT-3, the hallucinations were everywhere. And like it was a problem, and then they definitely fixed it in 4, and then now 5, I feel the hallucination is much less. So I think they've corrected that. And because I've corrected it, I don't know if I pick up when it does. So that's the one thing
Mm-hmm.
I think is not that I'm forming a relationship, but that I'm accepting the answer. Whereas before I would question it, and now because if the error rate is less for hallucinations, I do kind of accept it without fact checking like I did before. So that's
Oh, I haven't even thought of that actually.
I mean, have you noticed that yourself? Like, I feel like because the answers are getting so much better, even without like turning on the grounded search or having it show its reference points. I feel that definitely, at least for GPT-5, the new model is like amazing as far as answers. It feels right. It's not feel like it's making up, like the classic example is like it can't count the R's in strawberry. It's they
Yeah.
fixed a lot of these like funny gotchas where it can't do math, but because it was straight predicting before, but now,
Yeah.
well, yeah, it's getting better at like almost approaching, intelligence, but of course not quite.
Yeah, yeah. That part scares me. I feel like that's a whole other topic for like another day, talking about the intelligence piece of it. What I find is interesting is that because I think I've become so much more aware of how dependent the people around me are getting on AI, and especially ChatGPT,
Mm.
and the ways in which they're using it to almost like be their friend or to replace a human or replace human interaction. It's made me more cautious of how much I reach for the app,
Mm.
or even like how much I play around with it. So I find that I haven't been playing around with even chat, like the GPT-5 as much. And so I've
Really?
been thinking, yeah, like I normally, like with when 4.0 came out, I was like every day I was like this. And now with
I think
5,
we're
it's just like,
diverging here because I'm using it
yeah, I
more. You're
know.
using less. That's interesting. Yeah.
I feel like this, like us doing this and having these conversations will help me get back into it in a way that feels more thoughtful, because I think I was starting to get to that place where I would just like ask it everything. I was like, for text messages, like I wasn't even able to form my own text for a while there. So I was like, yeah, I need to take control of my life again.
Yeah.
And I think that's another kind of dangerous piece in which I saw with this story, is that just that ability for critical thinking, it's I noticed that that's not there as much in the story that I hear again. And I don't want to take away from like the very real experience of, there is a lot of abuse that goes on when someone's a psychiatrist or a therapist and has a client. Like I know that there are stories of abuse there, and so obviously I don't know the real story behind this lady and her relationship with her psychiatrist, or if her psychiatrist is a predator, weirdo, psychopath.
Mhm.
But like just the way that she talks about the ways that her AI would just completely validate her, and she had no critical thought to be like, this is a robot. Like, is this actually in my best interest, or no, she would just be like,
It
oh
was
yeah,
using critical thinking. Yeah. Yeah.
you're just like,
Take it at
I
face
felt like I
value.
didn't see
Yeah.
that. Yeah. So the critical thinking piece is something that I'm like really weary of when it comes to, using AI to supplement your personal life and your feelings.
So on that note, because again in higher education, seeing students, I think this is maybe just I don't want to say a phase, but a society as a whole, right? So it's like the kids that grew up with the first computer, the first online, first generation. Like for me, dating myself, like I didn't grow up like with the internet. We didn't get the internet until it was like middle school. So like there was I know the time, the before times. So I'm not internet first, even though I use it. So I think the kids, like you said, nowadays, the people that are in that transition, so people that are teenagers, to maybe like early 30s, like the underdeveloped frontal cortex, who are susceptible to, you know, developing parasocial relationships. And then you have this, groundbreaking technology come out. And yeah, but I think optimistically, I think society as a whole, so for, the kids born now that are maybe like elementary school, that they're like AI first, that they know about it and they've used it so much, that it's maybe they think more critically or it just becomes part of their daily life. Whereas those in tradition are just still, like I said, adapting to how to use the tools correctly. Right.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Like, I think, and you and I both work in student spaces. Like, I see the way that younger, because I'm also still super young. But just the way that sort of students now engage with AI, like it does feel like they're maybe not as susceptible to letting it take over that role of like friend and confidant in their lives. Like, it kind of seems like because they're building GPTs
Yeah.
and they're learning about it in school. So I think that they have that feeling that we do, where it's like, oh, this is just a bunch of algorithms and probabilities. But again, it comes down to education, right? Like, the more that people are educated, unless you're doing this work, like you just see
Yeah.
AI as this, like, it becomes like that movie with ScarJo where she's an AI and the guy falls in love with her. Like, it's so likely to go there, and clearly, it has gone there. Hi, kitty.
And I think that's speaking of education, I think that's part of it, society catching up because for like again when we were finishing our masters, like AI was just coming out, so there weren't like policies, like people didn't know how to deal with it from a workplace perspective and especially from school. And even now, I mean, this is ChatGPT came out 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, and it's just becoming, AI literacy isn't totally integrated in the education because so there's still, I think we're still in that reactionary transition phase. But that's why I kind of mentioned I think the generational shift. So those that go through school, once those policies are finally developed and then it's taught on the front end in like, elementary school, there is maybe probably a course on AI literacy, so it becomes a foundational topic. Whereas now, I mean, again, dating myself, I remember like internet literacy was like, like, you took typing, we don't even teach typing anymore because you learn it gradually and you don't teach the internet anymore because you learn it organically. But there were those phases where, yeah, I took that because that was an emerging technology at the time. So I think, yeah,
I
society
remember
as a whole needs to
my
catch
first
up.
course on like how to build a website.
Yeah.
Like, now, like, that's not even the thing anymore. So
Yeah.
I think it's a very exciting time to
Yeah.
be having these types of conversations, and I'm looking forward to just having more of these like conversations with you because I think that it's interesting to see the ways that AI is cropping up in different places. I would
Yes.
never have expected ChatGPT to show up in this like dramatic ass story of like this woman and her psychiatrist and her therapist and her coaching business. Like, this entire story is just like fueled into more, I think, maybe bigger than it was gonna be because of Henry, her
Yeah.
AI bestie slash boyfriend slash confidant and therapist. Like, it's gonna be interesting the roles that AI takes on, or that we assign to AI in our
Yeah.
lives. And so I'm interested to like explore that a lot more.
I
Yeah.
agree. Yeah. So I think, I think we can wrap up this discussion on this crazy story. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna read. I found out about, speaking of Reddit, on Out of the Loop. So I think, yeah, I finally think I am definitely out of the loop, and we're a couple days late, but I think it's still a valid topic that needs to be discussed.
And I'm interested in hearing what other people have to say about it. Like,
Yeah.
do they disagree with us,
Yeah.
or do they agree with us? Like,
Okay. Is
does
it,
AI have a space?
I feel is in this story, where does, like maybe that's like the discussion point is, is it more the patient, should we not blame this patient, but are we exaggerating AI's role? And but at the same time, AI definitely does glaze and reinforce. And there's tons of stories of marrying AI, other bad things happening with AI. I mean, there's just New York Times had a story about suicide through AI because they received bad advice.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No, I think the question is like, where do we stand on AI and advice? Like, is ChatGPT qualified to help us live our lives?
yeah.
I wonder about that.
So, all right.
Okay.
Thanks for this
Boom.
discussion, Patricia. I love it. And I'll
Great
see you
chat.
next time. Yeah, it's a great chat.
Yeah. Until the next one.
Till the next one.
Yay.
Yay.